Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Coach McVay Show with special guest Les Snead. I'm JB Long, joined by my broadcast partner, DeMarco Farr, fresh from a trip to the desert and a win over the team that had the best record in the National Football League. DeMarco, early wake-up call. Did you get back okay?
Oh, yeah, we're good. I love Victory Tuesdays as much as Victory Mondays. How about that? That was fun.
It's one of those weeks, Les, where you could fly home on adrenaline. So much went into that performance. What were your high-level takeaways over the win in Arizona?
Beginning with a flight home, usually I get a good nap, but didn't take one last night, so the adrenaline was still kicking. It was a heavyweight fight, like you said, number one seed, team with the best record in football, so in a division game. So that's number one. I think, right? I give all the kids, the team, the players, coaches, the credit for going through the adversity of the week. We're not the only team that's dealt with that, but for this year, it was an interesting day, and we were getting news during the day. So give everyone credit for stepping up. It's interesting. The thing that I took away is from the opening series. Right, we took some hits on in the defensive backfield in terms of COVID, but boy, did Aaron Donald, did that front 4, 5, 7, 6, whoever was in there, it just looked like from the start, you know what, we're not going to let this adversity stop us from winning this game.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how would you characterize that in your mental Rolodex of games you've seen or played in? Gut check. I know we've used next man up 1,000 times, but I mean, that seemed more than just one victory last night in Arizona.
Well, it was interesting. Sean and I was talking before the game, and I do think DeMarco coming off, if we just talk about our evolution over the last month, where we spent that month of November with a bye week and 3 losses, the Thursday practice before Jacksonville, the Thursday practice before Arizona were probably 2 of the more intense, focused practices I've been around in the NFL. So it was interesting just talking in the locker room before the game. Sean and I were chatting. I was like, I feel like we're going to come out and compete. We've been dinged a little bit. There was a lot of, let's call it next men. Right, we had to go to the bullpen. We had to bring in the pinch hitters. But what's interesting is those young men, they come to work like everyone else, and they get opportunities. And here's the story that epitomizes the night. And he didn't play it down, but he got a jersey, and it was Jeremiah Coloni, who was our backup center last night, and he's been off and on our, let's call it, in our camp, on our practice squads the last few years. This summer we needed a center, and he's a local. He's right down the road, probably close to San Diego, right? So he's an easy call. You can call him. You can call Jeremiah, and he's going to be there in an hour. Well, he was just starting police academy, and you know what? He said, "Hey, I'm 3 days in. Chance I'm not going to pass up. I'll be there, within probably 3 hours." Next day he's on the practice field. But then just fast forward. I think it was when Coleman Shelton had COVID early in the season, and it was probably that week where we probably had that bye week after final cuts. And I remember Coleman was out. I think something happened to Brian Allen at practice, and he had to step in with the starters. And they were probably running a kind of a Mamba 2-minute type drill. And in that moment, right, Jeremiah got that opportunity. And he was identifying, calling signals, making checks. And guess what? On that day, he got the op. And last night, of all the chaos was there was never really a flinch that, oh, Mr. Coloni's our backup center. So, again, didn't play it down on offense. But that just kind of epitomizes the night, and really it really epitomizes what next man up means. It means, hey, the next man or men, they're preparing like everyone else, and when they do get the opportunity, make the most of it and be ready.
Les, talking about training camp and that gap before the regular season, you're reminding me how hard it is to get live evaluations of depth in the NFL, right? There is no AAA, there's no G League in football. And so you saw several members of your two deep, your 53-man roster, even your practice squad, in what amounts to a playoff environment last night. What did you learn about kind of the deep recesses of your roster?
Well, that's an excellent point, and I know I've chatted with Major League Baseball GMs at times, and go, boy, do you wish you had a minor league at times, right? Where right, these guys would be down playing, and when you bring them up, you have a good bit of data insight on how it may transition. But that's what's very interesting is in these moments, I do think it pays dividends down the line, because what happens is if we go through adversity, attrition, like we all are, as the season gets deeper into December, the games get more meaningful, or I'm not saying they count the most, because whether you won or lost a game in September, it still counts, but they weigh a lot this time of year. So what that allows is players to get experience, but also gain the trust of their teammates, right? Their partner that's going to be playing right beside them, the coaching staff. So when we do have some adversity, right, these players have gained experience, gained in trust, did what they had to do. And that's the interesting thing about the National Football League, right? You can only gain that in games, right, when it counts. And it's interesting. You can do that to an extent in the preseason, but boy, does it seem like the preseason was a long time ago. So if you take one of the players who might have had a really good preseason for us way back in August, and then go, oh, he's got to play on Monday Night Football against the Arizona Cardinals, that preseason game just seems like a long time ago.
You mentioned Aaron Donald, and I'll go through the Kyler Murray, watching Kyler Murray all year. I'll go back to Chicago. Chicago only got him on the ground once. That's the most under pressure I've seen Kyler Murray this year, possibly in the NFL. What is it with Aaron Donald and certain quarterbacks? I know he's dominant, but he seems to take it to new levels when the team needs it the most. And boy, was he unblockable last night.
That was a special witnessing that, and JB, you're probably somewhere up in the stadiums like myself, witness it from a bird's eye view. DeMarco, you might have been on the field, but Aaron comes to play every week, but it's just, hey, that environment, Monday Night Football, who we're playing, right, the consequences of the result of the game, all those things, and the adversity we're placing in the back end. From the first snap, you just felt Aaron Donald. I don't know how many plays it was in there. I know the video has kind of gone viral where he took Max Garcia back to Kyler, and Kyler trips. I mean, that might have been in the first series. I know it was early in the game, but
it was the first play.
To see that happen and feel it and go. And when I first looked, I was like, I don't think he hit a gap then. I think he went through someone. And then the TV's always delayed a little bit, so you look up and go, holy cow, he just took the guard, like in one fell swoop, just like he shot a gap. So that's rare, that's different, that's hard to do. Nothing against Arizona's guard. I mean, Max is a man too, but that's just you ran into let's call it a team, group of men that were on a mission last night.
Les, there's a good news, bad news situation, I think, when it comes to Joe Noteboom. The good news is he's exactly the swing tackle and the starting caliber player we all knew he could be and would be when you drafted him, and he's grown into that. The bad news I sense is that 31 other teams are now well aware of that with the game film he's put out there.
Always like good news. Good news is that's exactly it's better than the opposite of whatever you just said. Right?
True.
And that's that. And it's interesting. Internally, we've felt very confident in what Joe does, and just to give everyone a little bit of insight, Joe's one of those players that were. A lot of teams tried to trade for him, right? They looked at our lineup and go, okay, Joe's maybe the third tackle, and we always said, no, that wouldn't be a worthwhile trade based on the upcoming season and the attrition that goes into offense. And when you lose an offensive lineman and you can replace him with a Joe Noteboom, I mean, basically a starting caliber player, and that's at either tackle or guard, very valuable. So jacked for Joe, and hopefully the good news is that we drafted him to be a part of the Rams for a while. We felt like he had the chance to develop into a very productive offensive tackle in this league, and we'd like to keep that marriage going.
It's impressive, man. I think that's his third or fourth position. He's played everything but center. And within a week, he's at right tackle, and it looks like he's been there all season long. But I thought the entire offensive line and Sony Michel, when you talk about December football, you know what it's about. It's about physicality. I love the way he runs the football. North and south, straight downhill. Let's challenge some safeties, and let's win. That type of stuff will win for you in the month of December.
Oh, exactly. I think there was probably a couple of weeks ago, probably the week that he was going to start against Jacksonville, I saw Sony in the hallway and said, you know what, this is why we made the trade. It's for these moments, and in New England, and we're experienced in here. You're right. If there's a December running back, there's a picture of Sony Michel as the example, right? He gets it north and south. That 3rd and 1 where I know we probably had some blocking issues on that 3rd and 1, and Sony didn't let that bother him. He might have been the hardest and more valuable yard he's gained in a long time, and he did that. That epitomizes him. When we got the ball late and we're able to run a 2 to 3 minutes off the clock there, where he basically everybody in the stadium knows we're going to give it to Sony Michel, and we gave it to Sony Michel, and we were able to get the first down out of that series. So those type moments are good. And what's interesting in that, right? When you start seeing the personnel packages, and last week it was Noteboom, heavy tight end. This week big Bobby Evans, but then when you insert, I just think of Ben, and I'll butcher his name, Skoronovic. How do you say that, JB? I call him Skoronovic. We'll call him Ben Sko. How do we say it?
Skoronik.
Skoronik, that's great. But to see Skoronik inserting there and really punching Buda Baker a few times, where having the advantage of being able to look at the TV copy and see those guys on the their facial expressions after that block. It's like, wait a minute, he wasn't expecting that punch tonight from a rookie from Notre Dame, grad transfer from Northwestern to come lead block. It's Robert Woods-esque. So those moments are pretty cool to see.
Les, let me ask about a couple of names I know you know how to pronounce, because we all do. Odell Beckham Jr. and Von Miller, a couple of new faces since the last time we spoke to you on one of these kind of trimester check-ins. How do you feel about the return on investment for those two superstars?
Well, I think starting with Von, I think you felt it last night. When you play someone like Kyler Murray, you got to have athleticism on the field. You got to have speed on the field. And again, we at nauseum talked about it, losing Jalen and some of our DBs, right? It was going to be a front 4, front 5, front 6, 7 game, per se, to really disrupt. So, and I think that's the part about it is that group working together, and we're forgetting to talk about maybe Greg Gaines, right? Unsung, right? Greg Gaines in there. So that's when I say front 4, that it's adding those elements together and how the Cardinals or any team we play adjust to that and decide how they're going to try to block that. But over the course of a 60-play game, guys like Leonard Floyd, guys like Von Miller, Aaron Donald, Greg Gaines, the rest of the group, blitzing with Ernest Jones, bringing back in Mr. Hollins from Oregon, having that whole group, oboe coming at you over a 60-play game. That's what we're trying to do. And it's been neat to see Odell really adjust to what we're doing, evolve in our offense, and interesting, right? Our group's still coaching Odell as the game goes along, as Sean and everyone evolves and adjusts of what we might need to do, and being able to coach and him being able to understand concepts and the importance of depth and patience and routes, all those things. I give Odell credit. It's been cool to see it come to fruition for him, because I can say this, it's very hard for a receiver to come to a team in the middle of the year and learn an offense, and this one in particular, because it's a pretty sophisticated system we have going here based on the continuity that we've had.
I think, like you said, I think everybody misses Robert Woods, but I love the dynamic between Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr. Cooper Kupp, I don't think he can play any better than what he's playing. I really don't. He's playing great football. I think you said it last night, JB, All-Pro, possibly in line for more honors at the end of the year, and he deserves every single honor he gets. But I think there's more there with Odell Beckham Jr. With Matthew Stafford throwing the football to him as he gets more integrated into this offense and his ability, I think there's actually more there. And he makes the game fun when he gets into the box. The fun is watching him score, but more fun is watching what he does after he scores. So he brings the entertainment value, plus he's a dynamic football player.
Yeah, he does, again, like you said, he has some traits that if we can get him the ball, right. We saw him on display last night, right? He can take the crosser and turn it into 40 yards, and he can, get isolated, on a defensive back, and that defensive back down in the red zone, right? Are we gonna bet on the fade, which we've seen him catch the fade, and he's a tough out there, or are you going to bet on the slant? And last night was a slant, so it just it definitely conflicts the DB that's going to have to make a bet, a little bit like I call it a goalie and penalty kicks, right? Mm-hmm. You somewhat got to make a bet pre-snap per se to have a chance to win that down. So that's been neat. And boy, if we could spend all day talking about Cooper Kupp. What a year! What a year he's had. It's remarkable what he's done, and it's really, really fun to watch. It's interesting. I've always thought he's basically I've said this many times. He's got a Peyton Manning-ish type football mind. He just happens to be playing wide receiver, and now you're kind of seeing that all come to fruition.
Les, I can never have a conversation with you without getting a little bit philosophical, maybe even touching on some literature. And I happened to catch the Daily Stoic podcast with Ryan Holiday when you were his guest back from over the summer. I think it was a training camp conversation. I've enjoyed Ryan's books, Obstacle is the Way, Conspiracy, a couple others maybe. But one thing that came to mind this week was panic rules. And this was a subject you touched on with him. I'd love it if you could kind of spell that out for our audience as well. And how did your panic rules help you during a 3-game losing streak in November? How are they helping you now with the sudden COVID outbreak?
It's interesting. I think I'll share this story that really sums up probably panic rules in a sense. And maybe it's not a checklist, but yesterday when Reggie and myself popped in a quarterback room with Matt Stafford, and Sean was in, and Kevin O'Connell. That's when we dropped the news that Jalen and Tyler Higbee would be missing the game as well, amongst the others that were already. And Matt Stafford, it was awesome to see. I mean, that's one of. I mean, he's an unbelievable guy. But there was definitely no panic. Unbelievable poise. Confidence, but the interesting thing was the why, right? He was saying, look, here's the deal. Played many games with players injured. Hey, when we get in the huddle and we're bringing in younger guys or less experienced guys, we can remind them that, okay, you're just running a crosser against the zone defense, been doing it your whole life, right? But and it'll work out. These players can do that. We've got a good plan, right? We'll get it working. We'll get that done, and we'll settle it down. And it was really neat to see, right, where in a time where you could truly panic, because I do know going into this week, based on a lot of our personnel packages, right, Tyler Higbee was a big part of the plan. So losing Tyler Higbee definitely threw a wrench into what you had practiced to that moment. So I think that's probably the essence of panic rules is when you're going through adversity that everyone goes through, what is going to be kind of, I call it your go-to pitch, right? If you're a pitcher on the mound, what's your go-to pitch? What's your go-to rule to get, I call it maybe shorten the game, shorten the situation, calm things down, and focus on one or two things to get you through the storm. So that's the philosophy that's behind that, in a sense, because when there's chaos, right, you should be able to go to one to two things that get you through. So I'm sure if you're a sailor at sea and there's rough seas, right, there's one to two things where you get back to the fundamentals. Right, it could be us a little bit going through this transition. Okay, let's get back to the fundamentals of blocking, running, catching, throwing, right? And it keeps things simple and gets you through a little bit of a storm and panic.
Yeah, that leads me to the next point. I was talking with a few guys before the game. I think just a few of the sports writers talking about your head coach, Sean McVay, and leading this team through a 3-game losing streak and then getting the win versus Jacksonville, feeling good about yourself, and then facing a seemingly impossible situation in Arizona. And if you can come out of this with a win, it's got to raise your respect level for him as a coach. I mean, that's a hard thing to do. One, you lose 3 games in a row, and then you lose some of your best players the day before the game. If you can get through this and you won going away, it's got to raise just your respect level throughout the league for his coaching ability. Just talk to me about Sean McVay and his leadership through this season, what you've gone through, and then last night in Arizona.
Well, I think that it's been remarkable. It's why he's been successful, and it's not necessarily, we say it a lot. It's not when things are going well. Sometimes, right, that's the easy times, but it's when you do hit your first bump in the road, that element of adversity, and we talk it all the time, and he does a really nice job about it, is how do we not become a fragile team? I think Cooper Kupp mentioned to me last night, he says that was an anti-fragile win, and by that I mean, and let's look at the adjustments. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Van Jefferson. Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods have played a lot of downs for us over this, if you want to call it 5 years with Sean. And so to lose Robert Woods, that definitely throws a wrench into what we'd evolved to and being successful and things like that. Now, what happens is if when you do have that, right, how there's an opportunity there to become stronger. And in that, okay, now we, right, will play, let's call it innovate and get back to more 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. And, oh, by the way, what about 13 personnel? When is Sean McVay ran 13 personnel? Holy cow, when is Sean ran 13 personnel with a big tackle as, one of those tight ends? But that agility that he talks about, where all of a sudden you get weaker in the short term, in the moment when we lose a Robert Woods offensively. But how do we take the adversity, and there's an opportunity there to maybe come out on the other end stronger. No guarantee, no certainty that it can happen, but all right, how do we look within and try to figure it out. And I think that's what Sean's done right with this team from the beginning, and especially this stretch over the last month, where you lose 3, you have a bye week in there that basically you need panic rules, JB, because that number one, my panic rule for that stretch was because you had 2 weeks before you even played Green Bay. Mm-hmm. So you lost 2, and then there's 2 weeks. Every day the panic rule is this: don't ruminate on the last loss. Right? Mm-hmm. There's a way to be productive, right? Because losses affect the emotion. I mean, it's interesting, the emotions of losses, right? They're stronger, they're more intense. So my panic rule that week was, hey, don't ruminate. So I give Sean credit during the stretch that, all right, how do we take this moment to maybe be stronger in December, January than we were right when we lost to Robert Woods.
Let me dovetail off that with a comment, and then I'll finish with a final question here. Less overlooked maybe with everything that went on Monday night is the Rams have secured a winning season for the 5th straight year. That hasn't happened for this franchise since 8 in a row in a stretch that finished in 1980. And we all know what you built from. You are kind of the structural engineer behind this project. So I commend you as well as Sean for the work that you've done. I know there are larger goals at play this season. So I guess my question is, the trade deadline has passed. What's left of the salary cap has been spent. There's still 4 games in the regular season and hopefully a month or more beyond that to go. What's it like from your vantage point to watch this play out now, what you've set in motion? And do you feel like you have a team that can go win it all?
The answer is yes, and we just discussed it a little bit. I still think we're still evolving. We're still going to have to get through some adversity this week with the COVID issue that is alive and well in our building and in other buildings in the NFL, and maybe all teams are going to have to go through it if the new variant is a variant that's going to spread really fast, and a lot of vaccinated people are testing positive. That's going to be an adversity, something we really haven't had to deal with as well. But so to answer your question, though, it's this is kind of what we built for. This is the 2021 journey. It's a little different now than when we started, based on some things I just said. But really, really looking forward to continuing to evolve, right? Because we beat the Cardinals on Monday night, but that was yesterday. And as you also said, we have 4 games left, and Seattle's a little bit down this year record-wise, but they're coming in here on a 2-game winning streak. You commend Seattle, right? They could have easily, let's call it, melded in, but that's just not who they are. And they're probably as hot now as they've been this entire year. And then you got to go to a Minnesota who's right there in the playoff hunt, and then there's Baltimore who's in the playoff hunt in the AFC, and then finish it with San Fran. So yesterday's yesterday. It's a cool Tuesday, DeMarco. I think we all should enjoy these type Tuesdays based on the magnitude of last night's game. But now we got to continue to evolve and continue getting stronger, so that those 4 weeks after December, right, you're continuing to evolve and get stronger.
He said it, JB. I'm right there, man. Like I said, I think I got a few more hours in the 24-hour rule, so I'm still going to bask in Monday night for a little bit longer, and then I'll turn the page. But like you said, Les, Seattle's coming, and for the Rams, let's go get 10. 9 was great. 10 is better. Let's go get number 10.
10's better. And from this point forward, right, the past is the path. That math obviously is it counts in the tally, but at the end of the day, right, the real math that counts is the 17-game tally, and at that point in time, that math will determine our reward, right? Whether it's a chance to play another game and win and where, or it's a chance to, for some unfortunate teams to ruminate on a missed op in 21. But so that's why I think that's why you got to take it one at a time, because last night's fun to enjoy, but now we really, again, it's a little bit harder. It's a little bit more challenging, right? Where we've had two really focused and intense Thursdays that I do think translated into what we saw the week before and last night. I mean, Sean implemented, his Mamba periods, he called them, for, a short period of practice on Thursdays where it's one-on-ones, not necessarily tackling right, but some competitive 2-minute situation, maybe third down type competitive drills. So it's been neat to see those, but to get that turned around again this week will be a little bit more difficult based on playing on the Monday night, based on some of our, let's call it COVID adversity. So, and get ready for the Seahawks.
All right. Well, in the words of my basketball colleague, Bill Walton, stay positive, test negative. Wishing the best for everyone up there at the facility, all the Rams there in Cal Lutheran and in our audience. The best of health this week. Looking forward to seeing as many of you as possible at SoFi this Sunday for the Seattle Seahawks. For DeMarco Farr, for the GM of your Los Angeles Rams, Les Snead, I'm JB Long. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Coach McVay Show.